range of that.
Absolutely. A
So
multi-level air defense system, that India boasts of. No wonder none of the missiles, none of the drones could really, hit a target in India, and perhaps that's something got Pakistan rattled as well. So there is a ceasefire so far as last couple of hours is concerned, not even been 24 hours, less than 18 hours. So I'm assuming that there is no mischief from Pakistan's side in the next couple of hours. Next 24 to 48 hours are crucial. Stay with us, sir. As far as we know, at least 5 top figures of the Pakistan-based banned outfit, Lashkar-e-Toiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, were killed in Operation Sindoor. This include Mudassar Khadian Khas, also known as Mudassar, and Abu Jundal, in charge of the LET's headquarters, Markaz Taiba in Pakistan's Muridke. Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar's eldest brother-in-law, Hafiz Mohammed Zamil, another brother-in-law, Mohammed Yusuf Azhar, who also operated under the code name Ustad Ji, Mohammed Salim, Ghosi Sahab, all of them are now neutralized. This as per various sources. 2 others have been identified by the Indian government agencies as Khalid of the LET and Muhammad Hassan Khan of the Jaish-e-Mohammed. All of these people are now neutralized. This is as per the sources that are speaking to us, that all of these people, designated terrorists, some of them proscribed terrorists, have now been neutralized as a result of that precise military operation that India carried out. Let me quickly, bring our guests back into the conversation. Captain Akhilesh Saxena, if we are to analyze, Operation Sindoor, let me also quickly mention, for the benefit of our viewers, the Indian Air Force has also recently tweeted just a couple of hours ago that it's an ongoing operation. So as to not have any qualms whether the operation is ended. That is not the case. The operation is still ongoing, which means if there is any escalation hereafter tonight from Pakistan, India is prepared to give it back. Now, Captain Saxena, I think one of the things that the past incidents of at least the last 12 to 18 hours have brought to fore is India's doctrine on war. Now, it is and can be said with confidence that India's doctrine is changing. Government of India made it very clear before announcing that ceasefire is that any act of terrorism from Pakistan, emanating from Pakistan, will now be seen as an act of war. So the principle of no first use, no escalation, I think those principles are out of window. We can now say with confidence that this is new India and this will hit back at least at terrorism and will not back down.
No, you're right. I think if I look at it in last 3 days, I think we have achieved mixed thing. I think we have achieved few objectives. I'll just talk about the top 3 objectives, and there could be 1 or 2 things which we have just left it on the table. I think, so it's a mixed kind of bag. What we have achieved clearly, we have given a very clear message that we will not tolerate any act of terror. We have destroyed their terrorist camp going up to their headquarters. Does not matter if it is in POK, because earlier they were thinking we will just go till the POK, but we say we will hit even at the heartland of Pakistan. If you do a act of killing our innocent citizen or anyone for that matter in Indian soil, we will not leave you. Maybe you can be in POK, in Punjab, or any part of the world. So that message has gone loud and clear, and that threshold to strike has been extended to entire Pakistan. Now, so that's a very clear message. The second message is I want to just salute the Indian Armed Forces. Despite being in such a constraint, and they used every opportunity to hit Pakistan hard, though they were fighting a battle where there was a lot of restriction. They were very calibrated. They were very measurable. Though we are saying we had given the full freedom, but it's a very clear message that we were just doing whenever Pakistan was escalating, we were just reacting to that. We have not gone still with the full force. So despite this, they have done an excellent job. It was a multi-level operation, joint operation for all the tri-services. That's also a very effectiveness shown by the tri-services. And they ensured that Indian Armed Forces will deliver each and every time when they are required to do. So we are, as entire nation is very proud of them. And the third thing is multi-level, multi-layer kind of approach. So it's not only the kinetic action of army which will happen. We will use all our resources. It may be Indus Water Treaty. It may be restricting all the import to Pakistan. It's also try to block all
Right.
the loans
So
available to
both kinetic and non-kinetic actions will continue. Would be fair to say right
do
now,
that.
Captain
Yes.
Saxena.
So-
I have to also ask Group Captain VN Jha. Are you happy with the way ceasefire was announced, sir? That there's a lot of mixed reaction coming to that effect as well. In your assessment as someone who is a defence expert, are you happy with what India has achieved so far by the way of Operation Sindoor?
Shweta, to be very frank, we have a military doctrine which says that if you have capability, hit your enemy so hard that he is unable to strike you. But government of India, see, we are the people of yesteryears. In our time, whatever were the doctrines, whatever were the mission, doctrine used to be formed as per the mission which is required. And I'm sure this time also, PMO, Raksha Mantralaya, three chiefs, CDS, NSA, they have all sat down and they must have formed their approach, how they want to go about it. I have absolutely no comment about this. But that basic mandate, when Pakistan started...
Holding back, sir. You seem to be holding back on what you feel about this.
No, I have openly expressed on your channel day before yesterday also. So that was a thing when swarms of attacks started coming from Pakistan side. We bore a very big shield of the air defense, and that is what saved us. But should there have been a gap in that air defense, we would have suffered casualty and the losses. That was not called for because we had the means to strike Pakistan so hard.
Sorry, sir. Sorry to butt you in. There's some fresh breaking news coming in on the show. After fresh ceasefire and airspace violations by Pakistan on the night of 10th and 11th, Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi reviewed the situation along the western border in a high-level meeting with commanders. The Chief of Army Staff granted full operational authority for kinetic counteraction should Pakistan violate the ceasefire understanding reached during the DGMO level talks on 10th of May. This is a clear signal. It's a shift that India is ready to respond swiftly and forcefully to any future provocation. Group Captain, I think this is important. This is a statement by the top officers, the top commander of the Indian Army here, and on your screens is that picture where that meeting perhaps between the commanders and the Chief of Army Staff took place. Now General Upendra Dwivedi making it clear, Group Captain, that any escalation tonight or for next any couple of hours to a couple of days will be met with equal measure and equal force.
Absolutely. This is absolutely a good statement for the armed forces to be ready in the preparedness to hit them hard. But there are two different things. One is this statement, and another statement was yesterday that any act of terror here henceforth on the Indian territory will be construed as war. That has got a very vague element into it because today there are about more than 300 jihadi organizations in the world who do shoulder one other's responsibility. Suppose if one of the Pakistan has got about 60 odd terror organizations on their land. Suppose one of their organizations carry out here the attack and someone in the Bangladesh or in the Africa takes the responsibility. Then what do? Do you chase them or do you hit Pakistani bases? So there are practical problems in that statement what India has emanated onto it. But leaving that aside, Shweta, there was one thing I wanted to add on to what our young colleague Captain was saying. Look, there was one group who had carried out the attack on that 22nd. But in the near vicinity of those period, say on 9th of April itself of this year, Kiswar happened. 24th March, Kathua happened. 11th February, Sundarbani happened. Last year, December, 3 major attacks happened. Last year, June and July, about 2.5 dozens of the strike happened, both on army and civilians. So there is a streak of the attacks into which these jihadi organizations have been involved. Basically, there are about 12 India-oriented jihadi organizations, out of which 6 are the one which needed a retaliation. LET, we have hit them in Muridke. JEM, we have hit them in Bahalpur. Hizbul Mujahideen, we have hit them in Kotli. But still yet, Harkatul Jihad, Harkatul Ansar, Al-Badr, they are still there. I think one odd of their camp have been hit in the Muzaffarabad, but their headquarters in Manshera and some other places are still intact. So if Indian armed forces have claimed that Operation Sindoor is still going on or it is alive, now I welcome this statement, because these India-centric jihadi organizations must be taken by horns, hit them hard. That is the only way, and make them realize that in the future, if they carry out any such dastardly attack on our territory, they will have to pay a price for it. And that price has to be borne by the armed forces of the Pakistan.
All right.
Remember,
Very interesting, sir. I want perhaps... Right, sir.
Just 10 seconds, Shweta. Armed Forces of India have got 3 services: Air Force, Army, Navy, and Air Force. Armed Forces of Pakistan has got 4 services: Army, Navy, Air Force, and the jihadi network under the ISI. So they must be hit hard. They must be made to pay the price so that they don't dare to carry out again.
Right. Yes, Captain Saxena, I think it's interesting that Group Captain pointed out, it does look like, if Operation Sindoor were to be over here and now, we haven't hit at enough and more of those jihadi organizations, their terror camps operating on Pakistani soil. So perhaps bigger action, greater action, more sustained action need to be carried out.
No, and I am not happy with the way the ceasefire was done and the timing of the ceasefire. Let me be very open about it, because we have taken the superiority in next 3 days, and when we start an operation, it is with a strategic intent. The strategic intent was very clear that we will have to hit the terror infra in Pakistan, right? And this terror infra, because we all know that Pakistan Army and ISI has got hands in glove, as Sir has also mentioned. Just by hitting their headquarters once will not eliminate them from there, right? You will keep seeing these kinds of incidents in India, which is continuously happening. You keep killing those terrorists in India will not solve the problem, because Pakistan being a terror factory, they will keep sending more. So this time, if we started this, we should have made it very clear that till the time Pakistan will stop harboring those terrorist organizations, there will be a punishment for them. And I think the moment we've started getting the upper hand, suddenly this operation was stopped, right? We should have hit them hard. There were few more airbase stations where we should have hit them hard. Now, if you really see what we have achieved today, right? Pakistani, they are still saying they claiming victory, because they say India has agreed to the ceasefire, right? If you are on a higher position, why you agree to the ceasefire without achieving your objective? Have they agreed to hand over any terrorists to us? No. So I think we have just half achieved our aim. We have given the message.
Captain Saxena, I agree. As a journalist, I am also very conflicted with the way the ceasefire transpired, and which is why I was asking Group Captain whether he's happy or not, and he took a very diplomatic position there, saying that the war doctrine is decided by what we want to achieve, and perhaps that is exactly what the government. Sir, I have to ask you. The reason I'm saying so is because the way Donald Trump's tweet came out. Before India made an announcement, and I'm very extremely surprised that he called it first, and it did not give enough time for Indian authorities to call it a ceasefire. Correct. That's number one. Number two, hyphenated India and Pakistan. The way Western media is portraying it, sir, it's not really about Pakistan sponsoring terrorism anymore. It's become about India and Pakistan fighting over Kashmir. Right? So that narrative...
They have never mentioned...
Not once mentioned a terror sponsoring state. There is no mention of it.
Kashmir. See, if you see, he's saying it's about Kashmir. It's not about Kashmir. Kashmir is an integral part of India, and that's very clear. It's about terror. Now, I just want to ask all these international community, they are also facing this terror. But when it comes to Pakistan, they take a very neutral way, as if they don't know that Pakistan is a factory of terror. The recent example.
I'm very short. I'm very short on time, gentlemen. I have to come to you, Group Captain. Also, some breaking news coming in there. Special briefing on Operation Sindoor is stated for about 6:30 today. So, in 2 hours from now, there will be a special briefing on the ongoing efforts in Operation Sindoor, and we'll try and get you more details on that. Yes, Group Captain.
A few words. One thing I'll suggest my young colleague, enthusiastic colleague, Captain, we are the armed forces. We are the people of yesteryears. What the hierarchy are doing today it is in the best knowledge of them, because they know their capability, they know their assets, they have been given a mission. So what they have done, we I think should refrain from criticizing openly like this. Of course, as a military doctrine, there are few things we do feel that it was slightly abrupt cutting off of the operation, in which we could have put Pakistani onto the mat, we could have brought them onto the knees, but that was not to be fair enough. If the government of the day, armed forces of the day, have taken that path, I am no one to criticize, and you are even much younger. I have had 39 years in the services, so I know how the things run. You are quite young. I think we should refrain from criticizing the government, because they are the people in the place right now to take a decision. And remember, even the most critical of the opposition party right now, given them the mandate that okay, you go ahead with what you are doing, we are with you. So even individually, we are all with the government. What decision they have taken, we must accept it, because in the chair, they are the one who have to take a decision, and we are no one to criticize that. It's a small advice to you, Captain. I think you may carry in the future things, because me and you, we are very small bodies to know the bigger picture of the things what is present today. Army, Navy, Air Force, CDS, NSA, RMO, PMO, all of them, they must be having a big picture of it, and we know very little of it. We are out of the system right now. We don't have the ingress into it. So we should refrain from, open criticizing
All right.
their decision.
Let's quickly give 30 seconds to Captain Saxena to respond. And while we do that, yes, Captain Saxena.
So, sir, I agree that our army goals or armed forces goals are aligned with the political goal. But I think as a citizen of free nation, each one of us has got the full right to express our view. And, that view is not on the behalf of armed forces, but as a citizen of the country, where we feel that, and this is about 1971. I fought in Kargil war. We have lost our brothers, right? But we have given the gains many times. So many times, the gains which has been done by armed forces has been given. So I think it's a time to be a vocal and express your opinion.
No,
right?
no. Yeah, no, Captain.
Gentlemen, we can agree to disagree. Let me quickly, Group Captain, let me quote to you Defence Secretary Vikram Misri sitting in a press conference suggesting that in this country everybody has the right to question the government. That's coming from the government. So I do agree.
Not in the time of war.
Okay.
Not in the time of war. Right now we are at war. We should restrain it from it. The moment things are over, absolutely you express your opinion. Look for the future. In another few days, opposition is going to come very hard onto the government for many other things, but not at this moment.
All right. Group Captain, I have to indulge you on the role of the US, and I have limited time here, so I have to indulge the two of you, because we're also trying to understand the role US seem to have played, brokered a ceasefire, mediated between the two parties, and the way it's being interpreted in the last couple of hours since the Donald Trump tweet came out. Who went to the US first, whether it was India or Pakistan, that's being debated. On our side, we are clear. We had initial gains during Operation Sindoor. We made further gains in the last couple of hours. So, we had absolutely no reason for US's interference. And as a country, I think it's also one of the doctrine that we follow. We do not need mediators to deal with issues of terrorism and to deal with our neighbors. But the way Donald Trump seemed to be very enthusiastic about mediating on Kashmir, I think that hasn't gone down very well with a lot of people as well. Group Captain, Kashmir is ours. There is no need for a third party to mediate on it.
Shweta, Lord Rama, Lord Krishna has given us ethos that if peace is bought at any cost, that is welcome. So here in this case, this is nothing to do with the mediation on the bilateral issues. No, this is not the bilateral issues. This is the conflagration which has happened, which has to be brokered. It had to be brokered for an immediate ceasefire, because both are nuclear nations. Yes, we may be having more capability, but then those people who don't know the effects of the nuclear weapon, they may just have a look at the Hiroshima and Nagasaki 70 years back. What has happened? So look, it is a devastating thing. Talking it is one way, and confronting it is another way. Even if one bomb drops onto India, look at the number of the people that we have lost. So if it can be prevented, that is welcome, and that is where if Donald Trump, if he has step into it, fair enough. It is not the mediation in the bilateral issues. The bilateral issues between India and Pakistan are many. Trump is not coming in that, or
All
USA
right.
is not coming in that. It is
Absolutely.
only.
Let's quickly get in some breaking news. Group Captain coming in on our show right now. Pakistan Army asked for talks at 3:30 p.m. yesterday. Sources are telling us that the Pakistani Army approached the Indian side at 3:30 for initial conversation. This is what sources are telling News9 right now. Also, firing stopped as a measure to pause action. Firing that stopped later in the night was to ensure that there is action. So Prime Minister Modi seemed to have instructed forces that every time there is a bullet fired from the Pakistani side, a bigger gola from our side, an arsenal from our side will be followed. There could be heavy shelling from our side. There are full instructions and freedom given to the forces right now. Stoppage of military firing has taken place as an understanding to pause action. Government is clear. If you hit us, we will hit you back. If you stop, we stop. This is the policy India is adopting right now. Sources also reveal that Pakistani Army approached India's DGMO to have initial conversations at about 3:30 yesterday. The DGMO level meeting happened and discussion was held to reach an understanding on ceasefire. This happened as a result of Pakistan Army's failure to respond to India's retaliatory attacks. Pakistan was bashed by Indian armed forces. They suffered heavy damages. Their airstrips, their air bases suffered damages, as a result of which Pakistan approached the US and later India. The DGMO level meeting was held at about 3:30. Captain Saxena, this is exactly that we were discussing online with what the feelers that we've been getting so far is that Pakistan initiated talks after realizing that the damage that India has caused perhaps is irrefutable and more so difficult to overcome, at least in the interim. So if the war doesn't stop, it's not going to be in Pakistan's favor.
Yeah, and there were two things. One was the damage to the infrastructure, and as we say, though it's not confirmed, but their nuclear sites were also bombed. So I don't know what was the extent of damage. And second thing is the IMF loan. So they put a condition. But thing is, if Pakistan is coming for a negotiation, right, is coming for a ceasefire, then he should be ready to commit something. Pakistan is coming for a ceasefire and US is talking on their term. I have not seen like this, right? If somebody is saying, I want to do the ceasefire, he has to say that, okay, I'll not sponsor terror. These are the things I write. But here, the entire case seems to be different. Pakistan, we cannot trust him. He is still saying the same thing. They're still talking the same language. They never even say once that they will not sponsor terrorists or not support them. Even US, that's what I'm bringing their participation into question. They also have not put pressure on Pakistan, though they are also going through the same problem of terror, that you will stop harboring terrorists and stop sponsoring terrorism. So I don't know why the kind of negotiation is this. That's why
Absolutely,
my initial
very
reaction,
good point. Very good point,
it's
Captain.
not a negotiation.
I agree.
You are just
100%.
trying to put one country that okay, that, and we should have been very clear. We should have told US that we are okay. We are very peace loving. Our response has been very calibrated and measured. But now, if Pakistan want to do the ceasefire, these are the at least 1, 2, 3 basic conditions, and which is very global in nature. Just by Pakistan giving threat that I will go nuclear, if we are so afraid, then we should not even started the war. Then we should keep taking whatever coming on to us.
Captain, I think this is a fair point. I agree, Captain Saxena.
Just more.
He's absolutely right.
Russia,
Absolutely right. But right
Russia
now,
has got
ceasefire has not been broken. Remember, ceasefire has not been broken. It is only an understanding of stopping fighting, so that the war can start tomorrow.
No, but I'm saying we should not go for the nuclear fluke. See, Russia has got the maximum nukes in the world, and this war with Ukraine is going for last 2 years.
2.5 years now. Absolutely.
Have we seen from Israel? I'm saying It's
I
okay.
agree, Captain
We
Saxena,
cannot-
and I completely agree with you. I mean, every time we see an escalation between Russia and Ukraine, Group Captain, every time Russia says no, another threshold has been crossed, even then there is no nuclear posturing, and Russia can easily manage to bomb Ukraine with the kind of arsenal it has in its kitty. So I have to ask you right now, there's been absolutely nothing coming from Pakistan by the way of a promise that we'll do something about terrorism hub in our country. There is no settlement. There's only conversation around a temporary ceasefire, no use of force. There is no negotiation, no accord, no settlement, no acceptance. So what does India really achieve? If this were to be it, what have we really achieved?
This is what you asked me, and I was trying to reply you, but possibly our young colleague was very enthusiastic in continuing him. Fair enough. Look, right now, ceasefire has not happened. It is the pause. It is an understanding between India, Pakistan, and the US brokering it. This is the pause. Ceasefire has not been signed as yet. For the ceasefire to happen, tomorrow the meeting will start. And in that, terms and conditions of the ceasefire will have to be worked out. India has conveyed from its side that any act of aggression, not aggression, any acts of the terror attacks on its territory will be assumed as a war, and it will go about it. Pakistan, from their side, may be adding a few more of the caveats into it. So it will only start tomorrow. That will continue for maybe for a couple of days or thereafter. Then this ceasefire agreement will be signed. Till that time, this is the pause that is being maintained in the war. As far
All right, breaking news there once again coming in. Pakistani Army had asked for a meeting at DGMO level at about 3:30 yesterday. We now know that Prime Minister Modi has instructed forces to ensure that every time there is action, if they hit us, if the enemy hits, we will hit them back. This, as per sources who've spoken to News9, News9 getting these details for you as far as that initial ceasefire or stopping of continuous operations there on the border is concerned. My colleague Kabir joining us with more details. Kabir, Prime Minister there giving a free hand to the armed forces, also suggesting that Pakistani Army was the one that approached India's DGMO to have initial conversation at 3:30, perhaps post which that ceasefire came into place.
That's absolutely right, Shweta, and we've been, glued onto the television screens listening into what Group Captain Jha and Captain Saxena also have to say on these developments. All eyes now on the 6:30 press brief that is expected by the DGMO and DGMO equivalent officers of same rank from the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force. The Foreign Secretary Vikram Mithri is not going to be flanked by Colonel Qureshi or Wing Commander Vyomika anymore. But top Indian government sources are telling News9 at this point in time that India attacked the Jaish-e-Mohammed headquarters at Bahawalpur in Pakistan with one of its most potent weapons. This news again coinciding with the booster part of the BrahMos that was recovered in Rajasthan's Bikaner as well. And this is again top Indian government sources telling us that this was done to convey the strongest message to Pakistan's army and the ISI since Jaish-e-Mohammed was created by the Pakistan army and the ISI. Prime Minister Modi had said, if you all remember that vow of punishment, he said, "Hum inko mitti mein mila denge, we'll flatten them out, obliterate these terror hubs," and that's exactly what we did. Bahawalpur ko mitti mein mila diya, Muridke ko mitti mein mila diya, Muzaffarabad ko mitti mein mila diya. This is all being picked up from top government sources. Ghus ke marenge bola tha, that's what the Prime Minister had vowed, that we were going to enter their space and nip it right at the bud. We're going to hit the core, the foundation of it, and ghus ke maar ke dikhaya. This is what's coming out from the top government sources. Just to reiterate, Prime Minister had also said that wahan se goli chalegi, yahan se gola chalega, and with the BrahMos booster being found out now, and we're also picking up from our own sources, Shweta, that the most potent missile was used in the Bahawalpur attack as well. And these terrorists are linked with the entire Pakistani society. This is another intelligence development that's come out. Funerals of the terrorists that we saw in those visuals as well, given full state, funeral. The Pakistani military, not even wearing their civis, they came in their own military fatigues. Those salutes on the roads as well. The government, the local authorities, the Maulvis. This is a myth that terrorist is linked only with the ISI and the army. This is wrong. This has been debunked as per the government sources that we're picking up. I think you were just talking about the Chief of Army Staff, Upendra Dwivedi, also giving a free hand, not just the Prime Minister giving a free hand to the armed forces, but the Chief of Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi, giving a free hand to all the commanders on the Western Front as well. Because even as nothing has happened, this new normal that we're looking at right now, ceasefire developments, the DGMO details that you were just discussing, all eyes on that presser. And needless to say, the western border villages are also on a very high alert right now.
All right, western borders are on high alert. We saw a complete blackout in various parts of Punjab yesterday. There was a blackout in Jammu. A volley of drones was spotted over various parts of Srinagar. But since 10 p.m. yesterday, seems to be an airy quiet in the valley. And it does look like both sides are adhering to the ceasefire as of 5 p.m. today. We'll, of course, have to wait and watch out whether Pakistan will indulges in any violation of ceasefire, if at all. And if it does, there will be a retaliation from India's side. That's the word coming in from both the Prime Minister as well as Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi. Let me quickly bring in our guests back into this conversation. Captain Saxena, let's sum this up for our viewers, shall we? From all that has transpired so far in the last couple of hours, it does look like there seems to be some sort of temporary restraint that Pakistan is observing after perhaps some of its ground troops did not really adhere to that ceasefire announcement. I believe that could be the only reason why you have the DGMO level meetings where the Pakistani DGMO promises that there will be no use of force on sea, on land, on air, and then a couple of hours later we see a volley of drones being flown into Kashmir, in parts of Amritsar. We see blackouts in Western Front. This has to be, and this goes on to say, correct me if I'm wrong, that perhaps the ground troops does not really care for what the political will or mandate is. Even if the politicians agree and their army superiors agree, they're doing what they want.
Yeah, I think there's a difference and there's a lack of coordination between political thing and the army thing in Pakistan that we have seen in multiple operations. Where India, it's a very, very joint, coordinated way, entire from political leadership to army thing, and it's all very aligned. So we see gap in Pakistan. I think that was the key message because right now, Pakistan is more in need of the ceasefire, right? For them, ceasefire is like, getting a victory, getting a respite from the continuous attack by India. So just to sum it up, I think we have given a very 2-3 aim which we have achieved. One is given a very clear message that we are now only going to hit in POK, but entire Pakistan in our range. Second, India has shown a very aggressive posture that whenever this act of terror will be there, we will come back to you and we will hit you hard. That's one thing. Second, going up to the multi-pronged approach where we are saying it's not only about the army approach or the armed forces kinetic approach, it's about the overall approach where we are going to excuse you, right? It may be Indus Water Treaty, financial constraint, whatever it is. And second thing, it has also got some plus for India because, it has again shown that Indian armed forces can deliver each and every time whenever they have been given the tough conditions, difficult circumstances, and we totally ready to deliver for the country whenever it matters. So I think that's a very positive for us. And going forward also, as also sir mentioned, it is not a complete ceasefire. I think we have given a very clear message. We are just suspending it for the time being. But the moment we see our terror activities or any unwanted activities, we'll give it back to you with interest. So, that will continue. You will see more aggressive posture from the side of India, which should be the norm. And we should not be just be saying if Pakistan at the first thing start saying nuclear, we should not be little afraid about it because, India is also a nuclear power and we should not just go into that thing. We should be very clear. If you do these activities, you will be giving back response.
All
so
right.
that's, I think
not just a
overall
nuclear power, better armed as a nuclear power, come to think of it, on, taking from what Group Captain was sharing with us, from Shaurya to Rudra. I think we are better armed when it comes to our nuclear arsenal. But again, India is not a country that would like to posture over nuclear arsenal at all. Group Captain, I have to, in your final comments, I have to also ask you to perhaps elaborate on how do you see, the ties between a lot of countries that have supported Pakistan in its endeavor against India in the last couple of days. How do you see the ties between India and Turkey panning out, India and China panning out, India and Azerbaijan? Some of these conversations that are happening in our drawing rooms, come to think of it, a lot of Indians who are hoping to go to Baku have started suddenly going to Azerbaijan a lot, and are frequent flyers to Turkey for their holidays, are also now thinking whether they should continue to maintain the kind of ties that they have in some of these countries, whether Indians should continue to support. And, at a time of war, I think it also makes us clear as to who's our friend and who's our enemy. And if anything, it's now made it clear to us that, Turkey, Azerbaijan, China are among those threats that India should be wary of in future.
Well, Shweta, this is a very questionable area where we stand and whom we should believe. Going back to your first question, it reminds me of a verse of Rahim. We used to study in 50s and early 60s. रहमन विपदा तू भली जो थोरे दिन होए हित अनहित या जगत में जान परत सब कोई. These sort of challenges are the instances when you know who is your friend and who is your foe. So everything has come out, but by and large, it is seen that no one is overtly against us, including China. China has adopted a posture. Only last night at 10:15 Indian time, that they said that they will stand firmly with China, but with the caveat that they have put to save its sovereignty. We are not going to invade Pakistan. We are not going to make it disintegrated on our own. It may disintegrate on its own, so that's a different thing. But China has got a major stake in Pakistan because वो कहते हैं कि it's a loan. It has given a loan of about $112 billion to Pakistan. If Pakistan disintegrates, that loan goes off. So it cannot afford it to disintegrate. Secondly, many of the Chinese defense industries are in Pakistan, which is making submarine, ships, tanks, even J-17 aircraft. This is being made there. So, said in a brief, China has got a major stake in Pakistan. Turkey and Pakistan are the two most radical nations in the world. There is a competition. So Turkey has come along with them. They have offered their drones. Bayraktar 2 was given to them. Like Azerbaijan is also another radical state. Turkey had given even to Azerbaijan. So we should not go much deeper into it. But the fact is, all Arabian states, most of them, they have not come in aid with Pakistan. It's a good sign. Most of the nations are standing with India. But as Captain was also mentioning, no one has decried yet the Pakistani involvement in the terror.
Absolutely.
But for that reason, Shweta, I'll take you back 6 years. When Imran Khan had gone to Donald Trump, and on camera he had admitted that, sir, in Pakistan I have got 43 jihadi organizations, in which there are about 30 to 40,000 terrorists whom I have to feed those crunch days. So no one needs any proof of this. It is there.
It's an admission in public, and let's not forget Donald Trump's action in 2018 in his first tenure to cut funding into Pakistan on the back of the fact that it has supported, backed and sponsored terror for a very long time now. But gentlemen, I think this is a never-ending conversation, and as we keep an eye on Pakistan's actions in the next couple of hours, it will be crucial to see if it violates ceasefire, if it adheres to the ceasefire or temporary restraint, whatever you like to call it. But a couple of hours will be crucial to establish whether there's going to be long-term peace in South Asia or not. Thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you for joining us on the show and for sharing your expertise. We are tracking, of course, the cross-border terrorism that Pakistan emanates. That hasn't been a point of conversation. There hasn't been an acceptance, there hasn't been an admission, and so far we know Operation Sindoor continues on the back of what the Indian armed forces have tweeted. The IAF tweeted just a couple of hours ago that Operation Sindoor is in fact far from over. We're tracking all those details here on News9. Time for a short break. We'll be back with more on the other side.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
India-Pakistan, tensions erupt. Operation Sindoor underway. Speculation everywhere, but truth only here. News9, no noise, only news.
उड़ी सेक्टर में इस समय हम मौजूद हैं और लगातार उड़ी सेक्टर में शेलिंग जो है वो हो रहा है.
There's also a barrage of news items coming in, but let's quickly run our viewers through what's transpired since late last night.
We neutralized an air defense system in Lahore.
A lot of sources of information and disinformation which are at play, so I think it's important to be careful at this point.
Verified, fact-checked, authentic, real-time. Only facts, only News9.
So these are corroborated information that we're bringing to our viewers right now.
Underline India's targeted and measured response to cross-border terrorism.
Pakistan is attacking civilian areas.
This swarm drone attack is in itself a major retaliation against India.
Your only source, your only destination. News9, stay sharp, stay ahead of the curve.
How India's drones breached Pakistan's air defense.
The response of the Indian armed forces has been restrained and professional.
India responded by countering Pakistani attack.
Pakistan has grossly underestimated India's resolve.
Operation Sindoor was a massive success and impactful exercise by the government of India.
The reaction of the international community on this particular instance after Pahalgam was to condemn the act.
Pakistan was unable to counter the Indian response.
We have gone about replying back in full force and full intensity.
Businesses are primarily in India known by their owners.
When you start a business, you don't realize how much you're putting the entire family at risk.
The trust is a big element.
And a typical symbol of trust is usually a banyan tree. And I used to, in my early days, wonder that how will a young company look like a banyan tree?
When you brought in this beauty product, Nykaa, you tried to make women look beautiful for themselves.
It's a message to women. Let the spotlight of your life be on you. And for that, we wanted her to be as confident as she wants.
India desperately needs that shift in mindset where women would be leading from the front.
They're risk takers and they do take open-ended risk, and a belief in yourself that you don't allow others to destabilize you and you keep pursuing your path.
Watch Radico Presents Duologue with Paruntas, Season 3, featuring Falguni Nair at these times on News9. News9, English news as it should be.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
Within a few hours of cessation of hostilities with India, Pakistan began violating the ceasefire.
India responded in equal measures in intervening night of Saturday and Sunday. Today, the calm has been restored along the line of control. But let us look at the biggest takeaways from the conflicts and the ceasefire, which US President Donald Trump tweeted about. His tweet took everyone by surprise, but the ceasefire or the cessation of hostilities were announced on both the sides. But then there are certain issues about it. And that is that JK has and must remain a bilateral matter. Washington is playing into the hands of Pakistan that has been trying to internationalize the issue. He says he will increase trade substantially with both nations. National security cannot be conflated with business profits. His record in mediation is poor. You can ask Ukraine. Trump lacks basic understanding of the subcontinent's history. But he's President of the United States of America. What India said. India has maintained JNK as a bilateral issue. India has responded in responsible and proportionate manner to the Pahalgam terror attack and Pakistan shelling. Pahalgam was the original provocation, and let's not forget it. Before we go any further, let me play out the bite of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh.
जिन भारत विरोधी और आतंकी संगठनों ने भारत माता के मस्तक पर हमला करके कई परिवारों के सिंदूर मिटाए थे, उन्हें भारतीय सेना ने ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के माध्यम से इंसाफ दिलाने का काम किया है। और इसके लिए आज सारा देश भारतीय सेनाओं का अभिनंदन कर रहा है। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर सिर्फ एक सैन्य कार्रवाई भर नहीं है, बल्कि भारत की राजनैतिक, सामाजिक और सामरिक इच्छा शक्ति का प्रतीक है। यह ऑपरेशन आतंकवाद के खिलाफ भारत की दृढ़ इच्छा शक्ति का और सैन्य शक्ति की क्षमता और संकल्प शक्ति का भी प्रदर्शन है। हमने दिखाया है, भारत आतंकवाद के खिलाफ जब भी कोई कार्रवाई करेगा तो आतंकवादियों और उनके आकाओं के लिए सरहद पार की जमीन भी सुरक्षित नहीं रहेगी।
And the point to be noted here is that we must not lose our focus and ensure we hunt down terrorists involved in Pahalgam attack, lest we forget it was the original provocation. And now list the big takeaways first. Drone was an aerial offensive. The drone warfare. Gujarat, Rajasthan and Punjab attacked after 1971. L-70 gun proved to be a big hit. Tactical, small but very important. Civilian areas were hit in the plains. India says that now the act of terror would be treated as war. India hit Punjab province. Pak DGMO called the Indian DGMO. Terrorists are frontline Pak soldiers. And Turkey, China, Pakistan axis is a reality. Now the question is, what made Pakistan step back and compel its DGMO to die in New Delhi? India has underlined that any incident of terror will be perceived as an act of war, and New Delhi will go up the escalation ladder with a proportionate response. If this is part of the cessation of hostilities, Pakistan must mend its ways. So the big question is, India saw visible US mediation in Balakot and Pahalgam. Where does India-US relationship go from here? The second question is, US has low threshold for terrorism and terrorists. Why doesn't it allow for its friends? The third issue is, why did the United States veto the IMF loan to Pakistan? Fourth question is, does US need Pakistan against Iran? The fifth issue is, India's battlefield has been redefined. How can India sharpen its AI drone game? Sixth, should India continue to keep Indus Water Treaty suspended? On this, I am joined by Lieutenant General Arun Sahni, former General Officer Commanding in Chief, Indian Army. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. Pramit Pal Chaudhary, Foreign Affairs Analyst, Journalist. Thank you, Pramit, for joining me. Brigadier Anil Gupta, and Ambassador Jayant Das Gupta, former ambassador to WTO. Thank you, sir, all of you. Let me straight away go to Pramit first. Pramit, the sort of intervention which we witnessed the second time, first Balakot and now, and both in the forms of tweet. Your comments.
So in Balakot, the real, I don't think the Americans had very much role to play at all.
Trump tweeted from Singapore, if you recall, when he was in a meeting with the Kim.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the core. The real game was that you may remember Pakistan had struck back after it carried out the attack, but it was fundamentally a symbolic attack. 6 missiles dropped on effectively barren land. Pakistan, and then Prime Minister Modi was the one who decided that he would not escalate, he would not respond. And you may remember he made a speech that afternoon at a temple where he indicated that as far as he was concerned, India had done all it needed to do. Trump tweeted, but in not too different from here in this case. His role was actually irrelevant. In other words, even if he hadn't tweeted, it would have made no difference, because once India decided to close that chapter, Pakistan was not interested or did not have the capacity to take it forward. In this case, it seems slightly more difficult. Pakistan was clearly, in my view, was trying to strike a blow against India in the sense of carrying out an attack that included probably a high body count or some key military assets. For it to be able to claim that they had revenged, quote, the original Indian attack on Muridke, Bahawalpur, and other terrorist sites. That was simply not happening. India's air defenses proved a little too difficult, and in fact, it was Pakistan's air defenses that collapsed. Once the Indian attack, the missile attacks began to hit their air bases, and particularly began to hit close to the heart of their nuclear command centers and storage areas, they were basically looking for an off-ramp. They were looking for a face-saving, and they were not going to get that from India, not after Pahalgam. So that's where they basically raised the nuclear flag. This is more like, not so much as Balakot, I would argue, but more like 2002, where you may remember we mobilized after the attack on the Indian Parliament, after about 6 or 7 months of a military stalemate. Pakistan began to mate its nuclear warheads to its missiles, triggering the Western governments to call upon their citizens to leave India, and putting some degree of economic pressure on India, which led to a quasi-negotiated solution. This is somewhat similar, I think, I would argue, closer to 2002. And in this case, Rubio seems to have done the bulk of the negotiations. Vance seems to have at least chivied the White House to get involved. Trump did absolutely nothing, as far as anybody can tell, except tried to get some credit for it. I think the American intervention, while I can understand why they did it from their point of view, and I think we should not discount the role of Saudi Arabia in this, it was probably a little too early. As far as India's interests were concerned, I think it would have been good to have a couple more days, given India's military or aerial dominance at that point. But anyway, it's happened, and once you enter a certain nuclear threshold, it becomes inevitable that both the international community and your own strategic options eventually start to narrow to finding a way to get out of this.
Are you saying that the nuclear bogey came into play again? NYT has done a very detailed article on the same line from it today.
Yes, I think that was a crucial part in getting the Americans to intervene. You may remember the Vice President J.D. Vance had said America has no interest in this war. And that fits in with the the isolationist policies of the Trump administration. But then you find that he leads, he and Rubio do come in. Why do they get in? Because the nuclear element comes in. Pakistan raises that bogey. And so they decide that they have to intervene at this point. This continues to be a standard ploy by Pakistan. As I said, 2002, in my view, was the last time they really used this effectively. But it's also an indication of the desperation Pakistan found itself in this conflict. Their own calculations have basically gone awry. And I think the destruction of their air defense system, collapse of it, and rapid degradation was something that caught them by surprise.
General Sani, a lot of people are saying that Shouldn't the army been given a point also, Pramit mentioned, little more time, 72 hours, 92 hours, 100 hours?
I think let me just put it by, I heard one of the statements made by one of the foreign secretaries, retired. I think he mentioned something that India wanted to avoid war and Pakistan could not afford a war. I think if I go by that premise, what is enough is the question that really comes out. I think we have achieved 2-3 things which are very, very profound, which I think is what was stated by the Prime Minister and by the Defence Minister when they started the whole conflict. They said we need to give and hit the place which conceptualized and conducted and controlled this kind of an operation. That is what was implied in the words that they used. And that is what we have done. We have upped the ante. We hit the nerve centers, which took them by surprise. We hit some of the other critical targets, which took them by surprise. And I think we achieved what we wanted to as far as hitting the as I say, the source of the corruption which was being propagated both by JEM and by LET. And I think that was, well, had been achieved to an extent. The terrorists who are here, who carried out this heinous attack, I'm sure, as we say in the armed forces, we're very clear, none of these terrorists have a very long life. There's a shelf life for all of them. They'll get caught and sorted out in due course. Operations are on, int-based operations will happen. And I'm sure, give it a little more time, we would have got most of them here if they're this side of the fence still. And I think most probably they will be. So I'm not too worried on that bit. I think where I'm really getting a little concerned is that even our own analysts and people start talking about the nuclear bogey. I'm sorry, when you look at Russia-Ukraine war, Russia kept talking about it. The whole of Europe and America still continued to support them. So I think where is the requirement? I mean, every time we try to sort of play it up within our own media that it was this nuclear card which led to India not wanting. I think our stated objective was very clear to achieve that. And the second issue which I want to also talk is, which is worrying now, is that all this debate that is going on is trying to again hyphenate India and Pakistan. I'm sorry, we are in separate leagues here. So let not that happen. And I think, why did the Rubio come in? I thought, from what I understood, he spoke to the External Affairs Minister. I must have asked, I presume they didn't want another conflict zone opening up. I mean, there's enough happening in West Asia and Europe, and you have something coming up in this part of the world which is a little prolonged. It's going to again impact whatever is the existing chains that we have in the world. So I think the reason was that they asked us, and we said, we have stated and we have given in all our briefings which came out that we do not want to escalate. We have not had military targets. We've had very mature and precise, pointed attacks at issues which created problems across the border. Initially in Pahalgam, and then by firing the UAVs and the loiter munitions and launching of the aircraft, firing those missiles. So we attacked that. So we were okay with it. I personally feel that after that, when he spoke to the Prime Minister and then to the military chief, I think he needed them on board, and I think it's more their acceptance. They needed a face saving to get out, and they agreed to the issue. And maybe this last thing which happened yesterday after the ceasefire was announced, they sort of did what they did, and we thought the ceasefire has again been nullified.
But sir, like if I may ask you, were you surprised by the sudden announcement of cessation of hostilities?
Yeah, I think so to an extent, yes. We thought it may get prolonged for another day or two, or if not 3 days. But that was an assessment based on the way things had ended on the previous night. I mean, it was at a high where there had been a lot of action across the frontier, right from the LC to the international border. So it came as a surprise, but I thought somewhere down the line you had to decide how much is enough. Yeah. So I really don't know. We would have got a few more priority targets, but you can't change the mindset of Pakistan. I think what is going to change the mindset of Pakistan is this issue that hereafter terrorist act will be taken as an act of war. We will respond to it. That is the threat that comes into being, adds to our deterrence and adds to the capacity to do that. And the IWTA thing itself is going to become the mainstay. Fortunately, we're just approaching I would say the deep part of the summer When that water starts hitting, there's bound to be response. It's the Punjabi Mussalman, the deep state that is going to affect it, because that's where they have all their assets. So I think I'll be not too worried about what was enough. Maybe I felt, but that is a perception thing of all of us feeling whether another 3 days would have been good or bad, and what would more would we achieve. Asif Munir is there for the next 3 years. He's got his extension.
But
you can't see him being changed.
Point taken. I know. Point taken. Point taken. But Brigadier Gupta, there is also one more aspect to it. I was sitting in the studio when the Trump's tweet came out. Then Ishaq Dar tweeted, and then there was a SMS from the MEA group that there will be a press conference, and then Vikram Misri's statement came. Then another tweet came. Wait for the MOD press conference. So and Ambassador Jain Das Gupta was with me yesterday. So there was a chronology of the way things were happening. But the way LOC got violated again after the announcement of cessation of hostilities was very surprising, and then it stopped suddenly. And people still don't know why did it happen. It really created panic in Jammu and Srinagar. I'm saying, imagine Brigadier, even the Chief Minister tweeted, put it on air.
Karthikeyan, if you remember or you could recall, yesterday on the show, you had asked me a question, what next?
Yes, I did.
And I had said next 24 hours are very critical. Yes. That was in the morning you had asked me.
Yes, sir.
And I said next 24 hours are very critical.
Yes, sir.
Either side has to show restraint, because the way the escalation is going up, if it escalates to that level or spirals to that level, it is going to be devastating for both the sides. Devastating in terms of loss of assets and property, and also economy. As far as Pakistan was concerned, as it is, economy is doomed. So who was going to suffer? It was India going to suffer. Then certain events happened, if you remember, if you can recall. There were meetings going on one after the other of the war cabinet in Delhi. Then comes a tweet or a declaration of India saying that any act of terror in future will be treated as act of war. And then comes this tweet of Donald Trump, followed by the MEA. But there's one thing surprising. So far, the government of India, in any of its statements, has not accepted the American intervention. We have not said so. Even if you go through the tweet of External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, he contradicts statement made by Rubio, who says that the two parties are going to meet in a neutral third venue. So what I mean to say is that we should not give too much credit to President Trump or America, because they are used to taking credit even if they are not there. I simply say, Begani Shadi mein Trump Diwana. So we should not give him much importance. But yes, ceasefire had taken place, and why it had taken place, General Sania explained it very well. It is because of the punishment, the battering with the Indian Armed Forces gave to Pakistan, damaged its air sets, its ground sets, air defense, its command and control structure, its economic, its reserves, fuel reserves, so many things. Pakistan was totally battered and shattered. There was no will left to fight. There were no resources left to fight. And the war waging potential of Pakistan.
This is very interesting. Today morning when I went out for a walk, a lot of people caught me. They said, well, you were in the studio doing this. Do you know what did they destroy? I said, no, that has not been told to us, but they destroyed something very, very important because of which the Pak morale collapsed. This is one thing which people actually want to know. So what did we end up destroying in Sargodha or other strikes that they, the strategic command conducted?
I'll just mention one or two things. You talked of Sargodha. Sargodha's hit was such a strategic hit because apart from its aircrafts of F-16, it also houses the nuclear assets of the Pakistan. And there are reports on X that those facilities were also hit, and that is where actually the tentacles of the Pakis were raised. Chaklala, Noor Khan airfield, not hit since 1965. We hit it there. We hit in Skardu. We hit two more airfields in POJK. We hit Sakkar. We hit Rahim Yar Khan. So Rahim Yar Khan and Sargodha are the two critical airfields for the offensive or operations in the desert and semi-desert sector. Both are badly hit. Also, the reserves which were to move from 11 and 12 corps in Peshawar and Quetta, they could not reach in time. So Pakistan had nothing left with it. My only apprehension is that I hope, and I am proved wrong, that this weight which Pakistan has given and we have accepted is not a tactical pause or a tactical deception by Pakistan, waiting for the reserves to build up. And meanwhile, get some asla, get some replenishment from China. This is worrying me because what happened last night, as somebody rightly said, it wasn't a fluke. It was a well-planned attack all along the front, which lasted for almost 5 hours. And when it lasted for 5 hours, we retaliated, we nullified it, but still it happened. Why it happened? Again, on your show only, somebody has talked of 2 theories. I also believe in those 2 theories, that either it is the Mullah Munir Khan's group, which is not agreeing to the ceasefire, or there's a rival group, which is pro-Imran Khan, which wants to show Munir in a bad light. To me, the first one appears to be more probable, because going by the history of the Pakistan army and going by the way they behave, and they want to always take credit out of adversity also, possibly there is a dissension, there is power struggle going on. Civil military dissension in any case came to poor light in the or to the highlighted in the morning itself, when National Command Authority meeting was cancelled, which was earlier announced by the Prime Minister.
Yes.
That was the first big dissension or first big indication of civil military dissent in Pakistan. So to my mind, what has happened yesterday, last night, we should not ignore it. Tonight, mind, it is very, very critical.
India-Pakistan, tensions erupt. Operation Sindoor underway. Speculation everywhere, but truth only here. News 9, no noise, only news.
उड़ी सेक्टर में इस समय हम मौजूद है और लगातार उड़ी सेक्टर में शेलिंग जो है वो हो रहा है.
There's also a barrage of news items coming in, but let's quickly run our viewers through what's transpired since late last night.
We neutralized an air defense system in Lahore.
A lot of sources of information and disinformation which are at play, so I think it's important to be careful at this point.
Verified, fact-checked, authentic, real-time. Only facts, only News 9.
So these are corroborated information that we're bringing to our viewers right now.
Underline India's targeted and measured response to cross-border terrorism.
Pakistan is attacking civilian areas.
This swarm drone attack is in itself a major retaliation against India.
Your only source, your only destination. News 9. Stay sharp, stay ahead of the curve.
So no one can ignore it. There was panic. I mean, so no one could ignore it. People came out at Lal Chowk, thinking that the normal life has resumed, and then this happened. There was panic. There was panic in Jammu. Colleagues whose families stay in Jammu, they were talking to them. The newsroom was on, and they were saying, they put their phone on the speaker mode, and we could listen to the explosions.
But what was targeted was the core headquarters at Nagrota. That is what was targeted. So last night, most of the targets which were targeted were the military targets, and that is because in the morning we had targeted and destroyed and caused extensive damage to divisional headquarters near Lahore and a military asset near Sialkot. So this was possibly, and we had also wiped off certain posts of the Rangers opposite Samba, opposite Akhnur, and opposite Rajouri. Possibly it was they were, I would say, wanting to take revenge. And since the ceasefire came all of a sudden, to me, actually the word is cessation of fire. So it came all of a sudden, which they were not willing to accept. And as it is, Pakistan army is a rogue army. They are jihadis army.
So I don't know whether it was sudden or not, because one thing is very clear, that there was some sort of a conversation which is happening. So Ambassador Das Gupta, what do you make of the conversation which must have happened? Because the 2 tweets which came out, Rubio and the President Trump, it tells us that the conversation has happened in multiple levels, because those names have been written, and I don't think you get to write those names so easily. One. And second, sir, before the press conference of Vikram Misri, there was a statement, act of terror would be treated as an act of war. I would like your response on it. Is it an enabling position, or it would create pressure on a government to act on every issue of terror?
I think India has restated its new doctrine of war, if I may put it that way, which means that an act of terror will open up the doors for India to retaliate much as it wishes to. The scale of retaliation, the time, etc., that will be at India's discretion. But India will no longer keep waiting for the diplomatic initiatives to end before, raising the flag of war or hostility and then taking action. So that is putting the Pakistanis on guard, that beware, you indulge in any terrorist activity, we keep our options open. We can retaliate immediately, we can retaliate after a few hours, a few days, but be sure that there will be retaliation. So that is the first thing. As far as the tweets are concerned, I think President Trump, I agree with my fellow panelists, President Trump has been unnecessarily trying to, take the credit for having brokered the peace. After his vice president himself was distancing in a press conference from the conflict, saying that it is none of our business, I think he is trying to gain credibility and attention by saying, because he's been a massive failure in the case of Ukraine and Russia. So he's trying to still maintain the facade that he is, been instrumental in working out a truce between the two sides. As the Indian side has mentioned very clearly, it was between the two sides that the dialogue took place and it was agreed upon. So India has been stressing the fact that the DGMO rang up and India agreed. So that is there. Of course, I am not saying that Marco Rubio did not, work the phones and talk to both sides and facilitate the whole thing. But that is as far as I would go on this matter.
Okay. General Sani, before I let go of you, has Munir, and then I'll go to Pramit, has Asif Munir come out stronger or weaker?
I think undoubtedly he's come out weaker as far as he's concerned in the country. But the problem is that he's in power, and today you can't, as they say, do anything when he's sitting in the chair. As somebody said on one of the channels, one of the Paki channels itself, said that the only place for chiefs in Pakistan is either they are there as chiefs or then they as ex-chiefs go and live in Dubai or somewhere else. So that's the status. So till he's in chair, I'm sorry, nobody can sort of buck against the thunder that he can carry with him. It's only subsequently that we can talk about. And I think we have to also realize he's part of that whole nexus that started when Ziaul Haq, Islamization of the Pakistan Armed Forces. And I was told here only that he himself has studied in a madrasa. He's also been to a seminary I think in Riyadh or in Mecca or Medina for his spiritual training before he joined the army. So I think he's a hardcore fundamentalist or an Islamist who is there. He is true to his learning, which the Pak armed forces are taught, that the Hindu is a darpok. Every time you will shout at him, he will run away. I think they firmly believe that, and that's why that two nation theory. And I presume this Islamization has now reached the senior levels of hierarchy as far as Pakistan is concerned. So we will see a little more of this being pronounced and supported. But I think the step of saying that a terrorist attack is going to be taken as a fundamental shift in our strategy of taking it as an act of war. We will act when we want to act and take a reaction. We don't need anybody's credence and clearance to say that this is from there or not. So I think that's where the whole story has got sort of anchored and pillared at, which is fantastic, I think, as far as that is concerned. But Munir is currently in chair. I think we'll see him being a little bit of a pain as far as things go ahead as well.
Mr. Chaudhary, when we talk about any military action, there is a political objective behind it. There is no military action without a political objective. In comparison, for example, in 1971, there were after we broke Pakistan into two, there was 17, 18 years of some sort of peace, or the Pakistan behaved differently. So, what sort of deterrence have we achieved, if we have to do a cold analysis audit, by this strike? That had 16 years of peace. The morale was down. Yes, they ended up building a bomb and all that. But what is the deterrence we have? Can you just break it down for our viewers in terms of what the message we have sent, deterrence we have achieved, and if the new parameters, what are the new parameters that we have put in place in terms of engagement, sir?
So I think the two things that keep on the military side. Our integrated air defense system functioned, I think, better than almost anybody had expected. And keep in mind, we did not use the top end of that layer defense system, or we used it very little. The S-400, the Spiders, and the Pinaka were not really brought into play. So their ability to use missiles and drones against India has shown to be much weaker than they'd expected. And the Chinese HQ-9 air defense systems proved to be extraordinarily vulnerable to the sort of AI-driven drones like the Harpies and the Harops that we have from Israel, and other things that we have as well. So you have a situation where they've realized that their arsenal has to be completely revamped. So that alone would take them 2 or 3 years. And contrary to what the Western press says, all the reports I'm getting, the Chinese technology more or less worked terribly, especially against some of the stuff we threw into them. So they will have to rework that. That's a 2 or 3 year program by itself. After Balakot, they basically had to give us almost 3 or 4 years of relative peace, if you wish. I mean, there's still odd strikes here and there on the terrorist front. And as others have mentioned, we made it very clear, if Jaish or Lashkar are allowed to come out and carry out any attacks, then we will, maybe I've already made it clear, we will strike as and when we want. But I think what I've heard from the Indian government's assessment is that all of these strikes are, while useful for giving us, as you mentioned, short-time reprieves, fundamentally don't change the nature of the game for Pakistan. If you kill 10,000 terrorists, it doesn't really matter in a country with 40% unemployment among men. So what are we going to do? And I think in this water treaty, the signaling we have sent in the IMF and on the trade front is going to be more important in the long run. We have to squeeze Pakistan economically. We've experimented with the Indus water by switching on and off, opening and closing the dams. We don't have too many on the tributaries right now. I think only 4. We can build up to 30 tributaries. Some of them are geologically impossible for us to block. But we have been working on canals to divert water from these rivers over the past 4 years. So now we will bring that to test. Now it's glacial melt, so there's simply too much water for us to control. But in the winter time, that is when we can probably, we'll have to see how much we can do, but their winter crop could be severely threatened. The point is, given how economically fragile Pakistan is right now, $16 billion in foreign exchange, most of that debt that has been borrowed from other places, including Saudi Arabia and the IMF, compared to our $690 billion in foreign exchange, an economic growth rate that's hovering at about 2 to 2.4%. If we can start to do damage on that front and consistently sustain that over a period of time, even as we keep growing, we will eventually render them, the cost benefit for them is going to be very tight. Even General Munir, when he was chosen as Chief of Army Staff, one of the promises he made to his officer corps is that when I am in control, I will see that Pakistan never defaults. Well, that's a matter of honor for him. Well, it's going to be something India can try to play around with. We can push them increasingly to default because they really don't have much economic space. And it's interesting that in the past 2 years, they've had their worst financial crisis in their history. China gave them absolutely no support whatsoever. China rolled over the debts and then said, please go to the IMF. we're not giving you any additional money. So they have struggled, if you wish, to be geopolitically important to anybody else, which is one of the reasons they're simply not getting any funding from anybody except from the multilateral agencies, which they're eligible to do.
Operation Sindoor. Precision, courage, sacrifice. India's finest on India's front line.
India is giving a strong response to Pakistan's provocations, shooting down 50 of their drones. Our air defense system has so far intercepted all the attacks made on it successfully.
India is now well within its right to be able to give a bigger and a better response to every single move of Pakistan.
Every move mission critical. Every heartbeat nation first. News9 salutes the Indian Armed Forces.
Armed forces are facing a situation like this and they've really risen up to the occasion.
You are in the hands of a very, very professional military.
The BSF, the CRPF, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they are also answered in full measure and then some.
Unflinching, unmatched, unbreakable. News9 with those who serve always.
There is also, there is also a fog of hostility. There is no war, but let me use the word fog of hostility. I'm also joined by Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, former GOC 15 Corps. He joins me. And when I say that the fog of hostility, I mean that yesterday's attack that took place in the Jammu-Samba sector across entire western northern area, despite announcement of cessation of hostilities on both fronts. General, a tweet has come 1.5 hours ago in which Indian Air Force has said Operation Sindoor continues.
Yes, Karthikeya, first of all, thank you for inviting me for this program.
Pleasure to have you here, sir.
I don't think this ceasefire which has been established, first of all, is very much like the ceasefire of the 26th of November 2003, which was never a written ceasefire. It was based upon a call from the Pakistan Director General of Military Operations to our DGMO. And a similar thing was repeated on the 25th of February 2021. None of these are written ceasefires. We have Operation Rakshak going on in Jammu and Kashmir for the better part. Well, Operation Rakshak 2 has been going on since 1991, despite the ceasefire being there many times. So technically speaking, an operation once launched continues until it comes to a finality or what is called a conflict termination. So on that issue, there's no problem at all.
You're saying that it's part of the normal standard operating procedure?
Absolutely. I mean, this is exactly, we just explained it to you. You've got operations within operations which are taking place. Within Operation Rakshak, there are so many operations which take place. Operation Meghdut in Siachen, there are so many sub-operations which take place. So there is no problem at all. Operation Sindoor continues until a declared finality.
Your take on the yesterday's drone attack that took place, or the sort of a lot of newspapers have written, if the word is correct to use, the harassment raids?
Yes, now that was a strange one. To my mind also, I was monitoring it, particularly the one over Jammu and in Srinagar. Again, I mean, I think an attempt to even reach somewhere up to my old headquarters at Badami Bagh. This was strange given the fact that a ceasefire had already been agreed upon. No, we in the Indian Armed Forces, we know how to live with ceasefire violations, but the community at large does expect that a nation, once it's given a word, on the international fora, it's given its word that a ceasefire has been agreed upon, within 2.5 to 3 hours goes and breaches that ceasefire. So this was a strange one. But I have my own explanations for that.
Sure.
And I do strongly feel that, Pakistan is trying to spin a web of grey zone around us.
leaving us floundering around diplomatically, wondering what to do in terms of military response. Should we respond immediately? Should we not respond? Or what should we base our response upon? I dare say that my own experience of dealing with the track 2 with Pakistani diplomats, Pakistani generals has been that at the drop of a hat, they will always wish to introduce an element of the aspect of intervention by the United Nations, somehow or the other. You know, they will always look for a cause to say, see, no one is being able to decide who is responsible for this breach of ceasefire. So let's bring in the UN. Let's bring in UNMOGIP, and everyone understands the United Nations Observer Military Group in India and Pakistan, which is not recognized by India but recognized by Pakistan. And their intention is always how to internationalize this, take it to the United Nations, bring in the United Nations into it, and therefore give a rise to the understanding of plebiscite all over again. This is a large-scale ploy of theirs which I've seen many times. I'm not saying that this necessarily was what they were attempting to do so quickly after the ceasefire had been accepted, but these are the kind of activities they indulge in. And I did ask some of my people who were asking me at that particular stage what I thought about this. I did tell them that I'm not looking at Jammu, I'm looking at the moment at Uri, Poonch, Kupwara and Rajouri. If the guns are silent there, then Pakistan is obviously looking at just attempting to harass us. And that's exactly what was there.
Brigadier Gupta, you wanted to come in? Sorry you had to wait for so long.
Yeah, two things I want to say. General Sani is left, I don't like to contradict. But to my mind, he has lost whatever respect he had. Well, literally had. In any case, there was revolt against him by the junior officers. Now, even the nation is not having respect of him because the battering is got to his entire nation. So, to my mind, November is retiring. Whether he'll be moved before that only an army officer and a coup can do it within the, or a revolt within the army. But I am very sure after November, the present government will not give any extension to Munir. If the government survives, that's a big if. Now, secondly, my assessment is that Pakistan actually started this entire thing on a wrong premise. Their assumption was that whenever India retaliates, because they have nuclear weapons, there will be intervention within 24 to 48 hours. And whatever damage they want to inflict, they like to inflict on India during that time, and then look for a ceasefire or intervention, which didn't happen. And credit goes to Mr. Modi and the Indian Armed Forces, who told everybody else to stay away, and they took their time and achieved their aim. I still maintain aim which was set for Ops Sindoor initially, that is to diminish his terror infrastructure, hit hard at it, and attack its backers, that is the Pakistan Army. That objective has been achieved to a large extent. And that is why we agreed to ceasefire on our own terms. Violation of ceasefire will continue even after this because, as I keep saying, it's a rogue army. The rogue elements in the army, they do not take orders seriously.
I have to say one thing, that this narrative that the America intervened will need to be taken very seriously by the government. The government will need to come out and break this narrative. Because if you go out, you speak to, not everyone is a foreign affairs expert, not everyone has served in army or the government. You know, the message, the impression that has been created is that the Americans got in. You know, everyone is on social media, you know, everyone is on WhatsApp, they have read it, there is, the literacy levels are high. I think the government really needs to tackle it. But Ambassador Das Gupta, how do you audit the international response in last 3 days in context of India? If I ask you, please audit it for us, sir. In the net audit, where do we stand, sir?
I think on the positive side, the Europeans, by and large, they supported us. And the EU, I think, was quite clear that, of course, there should be an attempt by both sides to come to a negotiated settlement. But the implication was very clear that Pakistan was in the wrong. I think the US was slightly ambivalent. It was not as clear. And, after the ceasefire has been announced, Turkey has tried to jump onto the bandwagon and say that, amongst 30 countries, Turkey also played an important role in brokering the peace. Turkey did nothing of that kind. Turkey sided with Pakistan. Turkey sent drones to Pakistan. Turkey sent its fighter planes also to Pakistan. So we should now recognize our enemies and our friends very clearly. Saudi Arabia, I think, has played, and the Gulf states, the UAE to a lesser extent, but Saudi Arabia has played a good role. They sent their junior minister to India first and then to Pakistan. And I think from the reports that are emanating from across the world, the Saudis also played their part, though they may not have been decisive, but they are one of the banks to which the Pakistanis go to encash their checks, even if they don't have a balance in the bank. So Saudis have a certain degree of influence on Pakistan still, and I think their role was good. The Iranians may have played a role because the Pakistanis are wary of Iran. Ever since Iran launched these attacks on Pakistan in the Balochistan area, they have been wary because they don't know where they stand vis-a-vis Iran. And so I think overall, and of course, China has sided 100% with Pakistan, but that is for two reasons, I think. One is that they want Pakistan to continue to trouble India through terrorism, through other means, whatever means possible, so that India's growth, economic growth, India's is hampered. India is tied down on two fronts, but also very importantly, the $60 billion odd investments that the Chinese have done in Pakistan, I think they want to secure that investment. So if Pakistan were to be hit very badly or mauled as an outcome of the conflict, it would impact Chinese investments. So I think China has been very clear on that front as well. So it has a twofold objective.
Twofold objective. Pramit, but how do you see the Russian response here?
Russia has always been reasonably supportive of us, in fact, very supportive. And in fact, in previous crises, including with China, they and Israel are the only two countries that have provided us emergency military supplies without any real question. Russia basically, their public statements were clear, please de-escalate and so on and so forth, which was actually India's position after the first day anyway. But keep in mind, Russia has certain limitations right now. It is caught in its own war in Ukraine. It is under sanctions, and its economy is already now 1/3 the GDP of India's. So there are limitations to what they can do. But what is good about Russia is that the relationship is strong enough that they do not, at least when it comes to India, they do not toe China's line. And so far that has held, which is good. There are, however, going to be problems in the future with their military technology, given their dependence on Chinese components. But diplomatically and strategically, they've always made it clear to China, when India and China go head to head, or they have a difference with China in which India is involved, that we are not taking your side when it comes to India. We will remain neutral. With Pakistan, obviously, they have absolutely no real standing whatsoever, so they could care less. So we're in good shape with them, whether the Japanese. I'd also underline Israel doesn't make too many public statements, but everybody knows that they are one of our most crucial military, and not only military, but also intelligence partners, and played a reasonably large role in this conflict as well.
Hassan, is the military synergy between Pakistan and Turkey that was on display for common people, from common people in context of a drone? You see, how do people relate to an event when they saw these drones were made in Turkey? I got drones, so the Pakis got 500 drones from Turkey. They must have got thousands of drones from them. but it became very, very evident in the public discourse. So is this synergy new or old, sir?
This synergy between Turkey and Pakistan is ages old. And it goes back to, from 1965, I can recall in my lifetime, 1965, 1971, and most of all, I think in the relationship that Pervez Musharraf particularly enjoyed with the Turkish state. Because, as a young man, his father was posted as a part of the Pakistan Foreign Service, was posted in Ankara, and he lived some part of his life there. He always had a soft corner for the Turkish people and for the Turkish nation as such. So a lot of association is there. Not to say that our relationship with Turkey has been completely off color. We have enjoyed a reasonably good relationship, but obviously not on the same transformational manner in which Pakistan has enjoyed it. I have personally met and discussed the Turkish National Security Advisor on his visit to New Delhi, not too far long back, and I can assure you, from time to time, our diplomatic, sort of forays with Turkey are very common. It keeps happening. It's just that somehow Turkey has been far too pro-Pakistan. There are countries in the Middle East which are part of the OIC and things like that, who don't go overboard in their attitude to display as if they are completely on the side of Pakistan. Here, in the case of Turkey, that seems to be very, very evident. And the fact that Turkey is today the core center, maybe Iran is the number 2, but the core center of drone technology all around the world, that has brought about this association a little closer. And that's why everyone is perceiving it that Turkey was completely anti-Indian and completely pro-Pakistan, which to a great extent is also true.
General Hassan, these are the 5 words I have jotted down. Do you think that this defines the new battlefield which India witnessed in last 3 days? Artificial intelligence, drones, quantum computing, simulation, and a networked response.
In fact, the characteristic thing which you are in these 5 things that you have just mentioned to me, Karthikeya,
I jotted it down. When I saw you, I thought I'll ask the question.
What the 5 things which you have jotted down, what it really tells you is how different it is to the past, where you looked at ground operations. What happened in Parakaram? We mobilized the entire army and took it to the border and did not deploy it. We lost over 1,000 men in just the lifting and the mine lifting operations as such. Thereafter, you found, even earlier, you found the Navy. There was a lot of demand this time also for a little bit of a maneuver by a maritime force to try and show that we had the capability to carry out a blockade and things like that. But none of this happened. The battlefield was purely in this domain in which you mentioned about, which you talk about at the moment. It would in the next cycle of escalation, it may have moved up. I would have expected that the next cycle of escalation may have been in the maritime domain. It would still not have entered into the ground domain or in the surface domain, because we have not carried out large-scale mobilization, although in a way, our pivot formations, pivot corps, the integrated battle group concept, etc., creates a degree of preparedness for us to be able to undertake these surface operations at a moment go. But none of this was required. And you saw in 3 days' time, this is the window which the world had given us, about 3 days. In these 3 days, this is the dominance of these domains was so characteristic in the battlefield.
That this was enough to deter Pakistan, the damage. This is the first question which I asked, to deter Pakistan from taking stronger actions when we destroyed the air.
Karthikeya, I was in the process this afternoon when your channel rang me up. I was in the process of drafting an article on the effects on Kashmir of this entire thing. Last 14 days, 15 days, what has happened? What is the effect at the end of it? What is the effect on Kashmir? From where it all started.
Yes.
That's a very important aspect for us to consider. Have we lost ground there? Have we gained ground there? To my mind, in 2016, when we started off and when we went on to 2019, both the times there was no question of any message of deterrence which was going out. It was primarily strategic messaging. This time too, I think we kept it still below the radar and could not convey a message of deterrence as such. Otherwise, it would have been very evident, and I would have upfront told you that yes.
Why do you say that, sir?
I say this because I still say this because the next cycle of terror, and terror happens in Jammu and Kashmir in cycles, as you're aware. The next cycle of terror will come at some stage or the other. It's not going to come in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or this Amarnath Yatra. It may come in 3 years or 4 years. In 4 years' time, once again, a similar incident, imaginatively put together, hurting us very deeply, hurting the psyche of the nation, will probably come about. Something like what happened on 26/11, something like what happened on Pahalgam, with Pahalgam itself, will happen. It is Pakistan, as far as jihadi terror complex is concerned, as far as the Pakistani military leadership is concerned, I don't think they get the message of deterrence adequately enough. And I'm flummoxed myself as to what is the final limit at which you can say that a message
before
of
I close the show,
deterrence
then I must ask you this question before I close the show. Then what should have happened if this was not enough?
No. I mean, I know everyone is demanding the answer that we should have just carried on fighting and we should have just carried on escalating. That's a different issue which can be discussed separately on a different show. I think the government of India chose its objectives very well. It went into the hybrid domain rather than remaining in the military domain. What I was just speaking with the ambassador, what I was hearing him speak, the IWT actually is the key to it all. It's not just the military alone, it's the IWT which is actually going to be the key to this. And as an ex-Uri Brigade commander, let me tell you, the winter flow of the Indus, of the Jhelum, for example, which goes past Uri, the winter flow will make a huge difference. This is exactly what he said, and I 100% agree with him.
Thank you. I've really run short of time. Thank you, all of you, for joining my show. The government briefing is expected to take place in a short time, in which the defense officers will brief. But the long and short of it is that India has been able to deliver a strong message to Pakistan. Yes, there were international players, but the resolution did not emanate from Washington. The resolution emanated between Delhi and Islamabad, and the dynamic was that Delhi had inflicted huge damage on Pakistan. And that's the truth of the matter. So thank you for watching On Point. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.